In late 2016, this incredibly bizarre mystery starts to unfold at the American embassy in Cuba. You've got diplomats getting sick with all these strange symptoms, and suddenly it sparks this wild story of international spies and some kind of secret weapon. But how much of that is actually true? Let's dive in and see if we can figure out what's really behind Havana syndrome. I mean, seriously, the first reports coming out of Havana sounded like something straight out of a Cold War thriller. The source material we're looking at today just captures that mood perfectly. You have a hostile foreign power, a mysterious new weapon, and American diplomats suffering from what seemed to be debilitating brain injuries. It was this terrifying story that, immediately grabbed the world's attention. Okay, so what was actually happening to these people? Well, the symptoms they reported were absolutely debilitating and very, very real. We're talking about a whole range of things: intense headaches, dizziness, this strange mental fog that made it almost impossible to concentrate. Look, these were not minor complaints. These were serious concussion like symptoms that were deeply affecting people's lives and their careers. Right, so let's set the scene. It's Havana, late 2016. Relations between the US and Cuba, they're tense, but they're starting to thaw a bit. And then, bam, out of nowhere, American embassy staff start reporting these really alarming health problems. The immediate question on everyone's mind was pretty simple. Were they under attack? And this is where the mystery really gets deep. A lot of these incidents came with this bizarre, high-pitched sound. One diplomat even described it as being like a teapot on steroids. This one detail, this distinct, localized sound, it became this crucial piece of evidence that seemed to point directly at some kind of external weapon. So you've got these weird sounds, you've got these concussion-like symptoms. It didn't take long for an official theory to start forming. It just had to be a new kind of weapon, right? Something covert, something super advanced. And listen, this wasn't just some wild speculation. The US State Department took decisive action. They came to the conclusion that their staff had been exposed to some kind of covert device, and they actually expelled 2 Cuban diplomats from Washington. The diplomatic fallout was immediate, it was severe, and it really cemented one side of this whole debate. And of course, the media just ran with it, especially after a key study got published in the Journal of the American Medical Association. Headlines all over the world started framing this not as a mystery, but as a confirmed attack, an attack causing brain injuries. The whole idea of a sonic weapon was now basically being reported as fact. It was a really compelling story, a scary story, but what if the entire premise was wrong? What if the search for some secret weapon was sending absolutely everyone looking in the completely wrong direction? Well, the authors of our source material, Drs. Ballo and Bartholomew, they propose a radically different explanation. It's one that has absolutely nothing to do with spies or sci-fi weapons, but has everything to do with the incredibly powerful connection between our minds and our bodies. They argue that this was a classic case of what's called mass psychogenic illness, or MPI. And it is so crucial to understand this. It does not mean the symptoms were made up. The headaches, the nausea, the dizziness, all of that was physically experienced. The cause, though, wasn't some external weapon. Instead, it was a collective stress response spreading through a close-knit, high-anxiety environment. Exactly like an embassy in a foreign country. This slide just illustrates the key difference perfectly. The initial reports were all claiming brain damage, which you see here as a hardware problem, like a physical injury. But the authors argue it was actually a functional disorder, more of a software problem. The brain's programming gets all jumbled up by stress and belief, and that causes very real neurological symptoms, but without any physical injury underneath it all. Think about it like this. We've all heard of the placebo effect, right? You believe a sugar pill is going to help you, and it actually does. Well, the nocebo effect is its dark twin. If you believe you've been exposed to something harmful, that negative expectation all by itself can trigger genuine, measurable, physical symptoms. Your body is literally reacting to the idea of being harmed. So is there any actual evidence for this theory? Oh yeah, absolutely. To explain it, we have to look at some historical patterns and, believe it or not, the mating call of a common insect. What's so fascinating here is that Havana syndrome fits into this long historical pattern. I mean, for centuries, new or weird sounds have often been blamed for mysterious illnesses. From a musical instrument back in the 1800s, to early telephone headsets, to even modern wind turbines. there is this recurring pattern where the fear of a sound seems to create actual physical symptoms. Which, of course, brings us right back to the smoking gun of the weapon theory, that distinct, piercing sound. If it wasn't a sonic weapon, then what on earth was it? Okay, prepare for a major plot twist. When scientists got their hands on a recording of the supposed attack sound, a recording released by the Associated Press, they analyzed it. And what they found? It wasn't a weapon at all. It was a perfect match for the Indies short tailed cricket, an incredibly loud, high pitched insect that lives in the Caribbean. This comparison really helps put that sound into context. You have the so called Havana hum, which was totally subjective. Only some people heard it, and it was localized. Now, contrast that with something like the Earth's hum, which is a real, measurable vibration that is completely inaudible to us. The cricket sound? It falls squarely into that first category. It's a subjective experience, an easily misinterpreted noise, not some mysterious physical force. So, if the sound was just a cricket, how did it lead to such severe sickness and a massive international incident? Well, it all comes down to the incredible, and I mean incredible, power of belief. The source material lays out this clear 4 step recipe for how this kind of thing can happen. First, you need a high stress environment. Check. Second, an ambiguous trigger shows up, like that really irritating cricket sound. Check. Third, a frightening but plausible explanation is suggested, a secret weapon. And finally, in a tight knit group like an embassy, that belief and the very real symptoms it creates can spread like wildfire. This quote, it just gets right to the heart of the matter. It didn't matter if there was a real weapon or not. The belief that there was one, that was enough. It was enough to cause real symptoms, real suffering, and real diplomatic consequences. The perception of the threat created its own reality. So that leaves us with this one last, really provocative thought. Maybe the story of Havana syndrome isn't about secret weapons at all, but about the secrets of our own minds. It really forces us to ask the question, just how powerful is the line between what we believe and what we physically feel?